So today we lost Dolly Parton. It's so hard when an icon like that passes. And it feels really unusually personal, even for people who never met her, right? It's like she was a part of our lives for over 6 decades. She just was there, right? Her voice, that twang, the hair, the figure, her humor. We had Jolene, 9 to 5, Dollywood, the Imagination Library, that remarkable ability to be absolutely herself, no matter what, whatever she was wearing or doing, like it was all Dolly, right? And at the same time, she never excluded you. People, I think, felt like they were just a part of her world whenever she showed up. And she died today at 80, man. Crazy. And she left behind more than 100 million records. That's how many she sold. And thousands of songs that were written over her lifetime. And Dolly herself often describes songwriting, not fame, as the heart of her legacy, even though most of us know her as a singer, right? And that got me to thinking, actually. We remember Dolly as one of the great singers of our time. But what if singing was only one expression of the thing that she was actually great at? Because buried inside of Dolly's extraordinary career is something I think that many of us really struggle with. That we can confuse what we love with the one way that we've learned to make a living from it. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to unpack that. Hi, I'm Leeza Steindorf, and for more than 30 years, I've worked with Fortune 500 companies, government organizations, and individuals around the world, helping them navigate communication, conflict, and change. And today, I want to honor Dolly Parton by looking at one part of her life that I think is easy to miss beyond all that star power. And I think she'd appreciate it because she cared so much about people and them using their gifts. And this is that she understood her gift. She understood it so well. She recognized the possibilities that other people may have overlooked because she had that understanding of what was given her. So I want to look at 2 moments from her career and what they might help us notice about finding more than one path toward the work that really gives us both joy and value. So the first question is surprisingly simple. What was Dolly Parton actually selling? Obvious answer is music, but I think Dolly understood something really specific very early on. She was a storyteller. So before the movies, before Dollywood, before she became Dolly Parton with sparkles and all the things, right? At just 20 years old, Dolly and her uncle Bill Owens created their own publishing company so that they could retain the copyright and control of the songs that they were writing together. And she held controlling interest. Now think about that. She was 20 years old. And she wasn't asking, how do I become a famous singer? And she also wasn't deferring to her uncle. She was already thinking, what am I creating and how do I protect its value? That's brilliant. And one song illustrates that better than almost anything else, I think. So in 1974, she was part of the Porter Wagner show, and it was time for her to leave. She felt it was time for her to start the next stage of her career. So instead of writing a letter of resignation or some business memo, she actually wrote, "I will always love you." And then she walked in and she sang it to Porter. And he cried, and then she left. And the song became a hit for Dolly twice. And then Linda Ronstadt recorded it. And eventually Whitney Houston recorded it for The Bodyguard. And if you haven't seen it, oh my gosh, do yourself a favor and go see that clip. So Dolly turned her composition really into one of those successful singles of music history. There was one piece of creativity, one story that she was telling from her heart, turned into different singers, different generations, different movies, different revenue streams, but the same gift. That story, bringing it out into song. And from my perspective, that's really worth noticing because sometimes I think we become so identified with our jobs and our titles that we really lose sight of what's our ability within that. Like, what are the gifts that we bring as we're doing that job? So maybe you're not only a salesperson, maybe you're excellent at creating trust with people. Or you're not simply a teacher, maybe you're exceptional at explaining complicated ideas. Or maybe you're not just a designer, but your deeper gift is seeing possibilities and then bringing them into form that other people just couldn't see. So your job is one place that your gift currently can be expressed and lives, but it doesn't have to be the only one. And I think Dolly understood that instinctively. But recognizing your gift creates another interesting question. What happens when a huge opportunity comes, but it requires you to give up or give away part of the thing that makes it valuable? What do you do then? So before we get to that, I can tell you that story. I'm curious. If you stripped away your own job title or your job itself, what is your ability underneath it? What is it that you do really well? I generally love to hear your answer in the comments if you take a moment and check that out. And if you enjoy these conversations where we look beneath familiar stories and events that folks are talking about for something that we might recognize in our own lives or something that inspires us so that we can learn from, go ahead and subscribe. I'd love to have you join our community. Because Dolly's answer to that next question may have been one of the best business decisions of her entire career. And here's what happened. Years after Dolly wrote I Will Always Love You, she got a phone call from Elvis Presley. Can you imagine getting a phone call from Elvis Presley? And he wanted to record her song. So she was a young songwriter from Tennessee. She was new in the business. So that wasn't just an opportunity. That was like a life-altering event to have that offer. And that's the kind of thing you're supposed to immediately say yes to. But reportedly, Elvis's business arrangement would have required Dolly to surrender half of her publishing rights to the song. And she said no. Can you imagine? Like, she wanted Elvis to sing it, but she also understood what that could mean for the song and for herself. She understood what she owned. And I find that distinction really fascinating. There was that possibility, there was that incredible offer, but she chose a different path. So sometimes the opportunity in front of us feels so big that we stop asking whether it actually fits what we're building or aligns with our values. So she didn't reject success. She certainly didn't reject Elvis Presley, but she chose her own values. She chose what was important to her, and she protected the thing that could continue creating success. And then years later, Whitney Houston comes along, and the song explodes globally. So, and Dolly still owned her publishing rights. And I think there's something almost poetic about that. So the opportunity that she turned down, it wasn't the last opportunity. And she trusted so much her gifts and the value of that song that she stayed true to what it deserved. And so it was simply one opportunity, but it required too much. The cost was too high. And that same pattern showed up throughout her life. Her songwriting became recording. Her recording became television. Her television turned into movies. Her history, her Tennessee roots became Dollywood. So, and even her love of books and learning and literature and children became the Imagination Library. She even collaborated with James Patterson on a novel, and immediately she starts writing songs for the characters. And then she realized, oh my gosh, those songs could become an album. And then that expanded that entire project. So that's not someone abandoning her passion to chase unrelated businesses. That's someone who actually kept asking the question, where else can this thing that I love take me? And I think that's what makes it so interesting. So we hear the term follow your passion, that euphemism has become almost meaningless. We hear it so often. And I think Dolly's life, her way of living and walking in the world, makes me wonder if there's a more useful way of looking at it, and that is understand your passion. Because understanding what the real gift is beneath the job that you're doing or the title or the role, whatever, and then staying curious about where else could that gift go? Where could it belong? Where could it take us? So Dolly Parton was a storyteller, and she told her stories through song and music. But she was also an actress and an entrepreneur and a philanthropist and an author and a cultural icon. But underneath so much of it was this woman who knew how to tell a story, man. And then she found dozens of ways to let that gift create joy for herself and for other people. So maybe the question isn't just, am I doing what I love? Maybe it's also, have I discovered all the places that the thing I love could actually take me or actually take us? Because I think sometimes the opportunity isn't to leave what you love behind. It's to not conclude that there's only one way to express it and to live it and to enjoy it. And Dolly Parton spent a lifetime showing us how far that one gift could fly, right? So if Dolly Parton meant something to you, I'd love to hear which song or movie or story or what inspired you, anything. Whatever it is you'd like to share, what you remembered most, go ahead and put it in the comments. I really appreciate reading your comments, so does the rest of the community. And if this gave you a different way to think about your own gifts and where they might still expand or different avenues they could take, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. I'd love to have you join us. We do these conversations numerous times a week. And remember, there will only ever be one Dolly Parton. She was really unique, but there's also only one of you, and there will always only be one of you. And maybe a way to honor her life and what she stood for. And she loved it when people found their own beauty and appreciated their own goodness. Maybe it's time for you to become curious about what else is possible with the gifts that you already have. Something to think about. All right. Thanks for being here. And until next time, be well.